Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to thank you for joining us here. My name is Chris Mendrink. I'm with DWD Technology Group. A little background on DWD. We're a reseller out of the northern Midwest, northern Indiana. We have a lot of clients all over the U.S., and we really do focus on learning their business processes and finding ways to enhance it, be it through scripting or customizing and programming or different tools like that. And today, one of the tools that we're going to look at is one of the things that we often put out to our clients as an idea for AP automation. So we've invited Altec to present their solution called DocLink. It's a Sage endorsed document management and process automation solution. The goal is to show you an effective way to manage your everyday business processes. So we're going to learn, hopefully, how to gain control of your data by automating that AP process to eliminate paper. And we can give you some ideas on how DocLink can improve efficiencies in AP as well as AR, HR, other departments that are in your organization. The team from Altec is going to show us what I mean. A quick note, we'd like this to be interactive and beneficial session for you. So we encourage you to type any questions or comments in as we go along, and we'll get those answered. So now, Kurt, I'm going to go ahead and turn the webinar over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Kurt Hickson speaking, Sales Director with Altec, and I am going to be leading the presentation today. However, we have a special guest with us from Altec as well. I have Himanshu Jain. He is one of our sales engineers, and he's actually going to be doing a demo portion this afternoon. So we're not going to give you just a presentation via PowerPoint. We'll get you introduced to DocLink, and then we'll actually jump into the product for a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up at the end with questions. So very fortunate that we have Himanshu join us today. So to get started, what I typically like to do is I like to get everybody in the document management kind of mindset, right? So I generally will like to start with something like this. Oh, sorry, I skipped ahead here. So our discussion today is going to be, what is DocLink? It's going to be, then we're going to switch over and have Himanshu walk through invoice onboarding, workflow approval, and some integration bits, right? And then we'll come together full circle there and kind of wrap things up. So my apologies for that skip there. But going back to what I initially was saying, to get in the right mindset of document management, I generally like to start with this slide. And really what this is pulled off of liveinternetstats.com. And what this does is it shows a really good depiction on just how much information is actually being passed around today, right, at this given minute, really. So you can see the emails are flying, Google searches are moving, you have social media interaction. So this just shows like how we have instant access to the information we need with a few clicks of a button. So my question for you as an end user is, how do you access your data today when you're in your place of work, right? You probably don't have that same functionality as you do outside of work. Say if you want to Google a restaurant or call an Uber or a Lyft, or maybe you want to look up a review on Yelp, right? All that is a couple clicks of a button, maybe opening an app or two, and you get that information in literally seconds, if not a minute or so. So we want to try to give you that type of power back in the organization when it comes to your job, right? We want you to be able to streamline and gain that usability, that visibility that we have in our everyday lives outside the organization. So you have to start somewhere, right? And it typically starts with how you manage your documents. So today, I'm assuming most of you are probably in the mode of a filing cabinet, or maybe taking that leap to a network file share, and that's really how you're managing your documents today. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be on this call, this webinar. Or maybe you already have taken that step to a software program, but maybe it's not robust enough, it's not meeting your needs, maybe it's just homegrown, right? You've outgrown it. So that's really where we want to talk, right? So we want to give you that information via a software platform. So we want to talk about how DocLink works, right? So with DocLink, we generally can grab information as it comes into the organization, or even as it's created, and we can now start connecting people to that data, right? So we can connect via DocLink, which allows for operations to have greater visibility, instant access to information, right? It's controlled. You know where the documents are at given times, which leads to streamlining. And then because we have all that information at our fingertips, we can actually deliver it, right? We can deliver that systematically. So really what DocLink likes to do is it's really about connecting people, processes, and data, and it gives you actually a competitive advantage at that as well. So let's look at this a bit further, shall we? So what DocLink does is when a document comes into the organization, we have various methods of capturing that data off that document. And for an example, we'll just talk about invoices, and since we're focusing a little bit on AP today. So say an AP invoice comes in, we're going to capture that in various ways, right? We can open it, it comes in the mail, we can open that mail, we can scan it in. Maybe it comes in via email, we can do an email import. You can either do some manual data, or you can actually leverage a tool called OCR, which is a little more robust and geared towards organizations that deal with really high paper volume. We can do barcode if there's any barcoding, and then there's also a print capture, and that's more or less for documents that are being created internally. But really what we do is we want to capture that document, and then we want to bring it directly into DocLink, indexed, and now what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to take that document to the next step. So we're going to take that step in the business process, right? So business process, we'll say, again, just using that AP invoice as an example, that AP invoice comes in, it gets indexed into DocLink. Now from there, there's traditionally going to be a business process behind that AP invoice. Maybe it needs to, this was a recent purchase of computers, so we have to route that invoice to the IT manager for he or she to approve that invoice. Maybe they want to code it, right? They can do that with the workflow. We have some automation tools to make that workflow a little more streamlined, right? Where we can dictate where information or where documents need to go based on the information on that invoice. So really help you streamline that process. And then we also have some tools out there which we would call smart forms, which is basically being able to recreate a paper-based form as an electronic form within DocLink. So again, that really helps you streamline your processes. And use cases there, we see, purchase order requests, we see check requests, we see expense reports. Those are what those smart forms usually are used for. So again, because we have all this information housed in DocLink, we're going to be able to deliver it, right? We can send this out in an automated fashion. So we could create some pre-configured routing rules behind the scenes, so when a document comes in, they can trigger next steps. Maybe we want to package something together and send it out to a customer or a vendor, right? We can do that because we have that information in DocLink. But really what DocLink is as well, it helps you increase or build upon your initial investment. Your initial investment was Sage or your ERP, right? So we want to be able to make sure that we're streamlining that information that resides in the ERP and using that, because that's always going to be the accounting system of record. We want to leverage that information, vendor codes, things like that. And we want the two platforms to talk to each other, right? So it's constantly pushing and pulling information between the two. And then lastly, as I started with, is because we have that information housed in the DocLink repository, end users now have the ability to access that, much like they would, outside the workplace. Again, those scenarios of calling an Uber via the app or looking up a restaurant on Yelp. Now, if an end user wants to find an invoice or maybe a check that was cut for a certain invoice, they can log into DocLink, click a couple values of maybe a date, maybe a dollar amount, maybe a vendor, and they can pull up all the associated information, again, with a couple clicks of a button, much like they get to do in the real world. We also have a mobile app, and we have a web client as well. So there's various ways of accessing this information. It's not just limited to a desktop application, which is great. So this is what DocLink is, right? Capture, process, deliver, and being able to leverage integration as well as access, right? So that's what we do. So now what I want to do is, now that we've given you a good high-level understanding of what DocLink is, I want to pass it over to Himanshu now, and he's going to walk through those demo scenarios that I accidentally skipped at the beginning. But again, we're going to be talking about bringing in an invoice, dictating where that invoice is going to go via workflow. We're going to talk about the integration, and then we'll wrap things up. So Himanshu, I'm going to go ahead and give you presenter rights here, and we will jump into the really fun part of this presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Kurt. And let me share my screen here. Perfect. Kurt, can you confirm if you can see the screen that I'm sharing?
It looks good to me.
Awesome. Okay. So let's get started. And, having DocLink is definitely, and like Kurt was mentioning about the technology, right? How things are getting so up and ahead, and it's hard to keep up sometimes. So if you can have that kind of an extra edge with DocLink, being able to get access to your information, to your data rather easily, that's the idea of being able to have that kind of automation and business process streamlining, if you will. So with DocLink, what we're going to talk about today is more focused on accounts payable side of the house. But keep in mind, we are an enterprise-wide document management system. We've got customers using DocLink in a lot of different use cases, including, their HR operations, any kind of forms that they are filling out. You can use DocLink's form technology. And there, a lot of different ways you can go above and beyond accounts payable. But for today's part of the conversation, we'll start with accounts payable. So first thing I'm going to talk about is capturing and bringing, documents into the system, onboarding the documents in DocLink. So there are a couple of ways we can do that. Number one is if the documents are coming in electronically in an email account, what we can do is we can monitor that email account, and we can automatically bring in the documents. So that way, once the email comes in, we'll take that attachment from the email and push that document into DocLink. At the same time, indexing certain properties automatically. So for instance, let's say the invoice comes in and it comes in today. The chances are that the invoice date is today's, because they usually get sent out at the same time from an electronic system. So we can index the invoice date as the date it was received. The next thing could be something like vendor information. So based on the email address, right? Based on the email account it's coming from. So if it's coming from at apple.com or at dell.com, we can automatically assign the right vendor, be it Apple or Dell. So few things that can be automated with the indexing when it comes in through email. The other ways you can receive invoices is when it comes in the form of paper. So in that case of paper document, what you can do is you can take the copy of that invoice, put it onto a scanning device, and that scanning device will be configured to scan the documents to a specific folder. So what I can do is I'm pretending as if I'm scanning the document. I put it onto a scanning device, and once that document is scanned in, it goes into this folder location, right? Now, as soon as the document gets in there, something to keep in mind is that the scanner does not have to be a special kind of a scanning device. Any multifunction device, any desktop scanner will work just fine. And as long as it can generate a PDF file, that's all we care about. Now, notice how that document disappeared from that location, right? So what happens is, similar to monitoring that email account, we're monitoring this folder location. And when we find that new document, we'll basically bring that document into the system and we'll send it into the workflow process. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that we do offer OCR technology as well, where we can read the information, extract pieces of information like, invoice number, invoice date, invoice amount, terms, taxes, freight, all that fun stuff. we can also go to the level of line level extraction. So we can extract not just the header and footer information, but also line level information. And with that line level extraction, we can perform the two-way and three-way matching against your packing slip, against your purchase order. So those are things that can be done to further automate the processes. Now, once the document has been sent into the workflow process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to start with the workflow by logging in as the accounts payable user. So I've got my, smart client desktop icon sitting right here. I can double click, open it up. And once I open it up, it will basically show me a login screen. With that login screen, I will go ahead and select the user that I want to log in as. Now, in this case, I want to log in as Jane, who is our AP person. We also offer single sign-on, so you don't have to have a separate username and password for DocLink. Based on the username and password that you use to log in into your into your workstation, into your desktop or laptop, you can use just same username and password here in DocLink. After I log in, system will show me multiple tabs on the top in a screen. And with those multiple tabs, the idea is that based on users' permission, based on what they can or cannot do in the system, they will get access to certain tabs and not to the others. So in this case, what we have is, we've got the workflow tab, which is, the workflow section. So as a user, I will come and select my workflow tab. On the left-hand side, I will come here and select my workflow that I would like to start working on. So I would like to start working on, let's say, AP processing workflow. Here is my workflow on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, what we have is initial status. Now, when I say initial status in DocLink, essentially what that means is it's like an electronic bucket, like an electronic inbox where documents come into. So here's my unprocessed bucket. This is the very first step where this document will come into. So I'll come here, select my unprocessed bucket, hit that search button on the top left corner. System will bring up the list of the documents that are sitting for me to work on as the accounts payable user. Now here is that copy of the invoice that just came in. So I can double click, open it up, and start working on the invoice. Now, few things just to kind of give you a quick lay of the land of what we are looking at here. So what we have on the left-hand side is the notes section. With this notes section, the idea is to use DocLink as a great communication tool. So we've got approve, deny, and information note. Approve and deny, quite obvious, to approve and deny the document. And the information note is something to put in as an additional comment. So if you have something that you would like to relay to the next person in the queue, or maybe just put in as a note for yourself. So when you look at this document 10 months from now, you can easily identify what this invoice was about, right? In the middle of the screen, what we have is the document that was, or the invoice that was sent by the vendor. And on the right-hand side, what we are looking at is the document information section. Now notice how I can kind of, move these panels around and shrink sections of the, layout, which does not really need more attention, and expand the ones that need more attention. So that's, shows you the flexibility with the application, how easily you can kind of size the screens and modify the screens based on your requirements. Now in this document information section, as you can see, we've got multiple tabs at the bottom. Depending on what user is trying to do, what they would like to achieve, they can select one or the other tab. Now what we are looking at here is the indexing tab, and something I'd like to kind of show you as part of our integration. What we can do is based on our integration with Sage, we can essentially allow users to index certain pieces of information coming directly from Sage. So in an instance of, let's say, if it's a purchase order based invoice, and if you want to assign a purchase order number, you can just come here, select that information by selecting it from a lookup. So here's the list of all the purchase orders that are sitting in, Sage. That's the list of all the open purchase orders. And selecting a PO could be something as easy as just, selecting the one from the list. And as soon as I click on OK button, notice how it automatically populates the vendor information for me. So that's part of the integration. We can even bring back other pieces of information like PO amount, PO date, the items, the list that are listed on POs, and so on and so forth. So that's the beauty of being able to have that integration, that seamless communication between Sage and DocLink. Now, second part could be when you're talking about your non-PO invoices, right? In case of your non-PO invoices, what you can do is you can go into the interface called distribution stamp. And with that distribution stamp, essentially the idea is being able to apply that invoice entry screen kind of interface right here in DocLink. So let's say you've got some managers, you've got some, department users and admins who are doing the GL account coding for those departments, right? You do not have to give those users access to Sage in order to be able to do the GL account coding part. You do not have to have those users part of the Sage licensing either. All they need to do is just go here, log in into DocLink, and be able to perform that same action of applying the, GL account coding, the invoice information, vendor information, so on and so forth, right here using distribution stamp. So what I can do is I can come here, click on that create new stamp button, and then notice how it basically populates certain fields on the top for me based on the information that I provided based on that PO number. But I realized that, this is actually American League detection invoice. So I want to change that vendor name. To make that modification, it's something as simple as just coming here, clicking on that lookup, and then notice how it brings back the list of all the vendors. And keep in mind that list is coming from Sage. So using that seamless integration, you can just come here, select the right vendor, the list coming from Sage, and then based on my selection, I can go ahead and move on and apply the rest of the fields. So I've got my invoice number is the next. I can go ahead and enter in the invoice number, which is 26168. Invoice date, which is 5/27/18. And then the invoice amount. So if I scroll further down, I can see here my invoice amount is $9,175. So I can enter in that amount. So that's how easy it can be as far as the processing of that document goes, right? All you're doing is you're entering the information right here in this section. And if you were to use OCR technology, like I mentioned, you do not have to enter every single piece of information. Things like vendor, invoice date, invoice number, invoice amount, invoice due date can be populated by OCR technology. So depending on how automated you want your solution to be. Now let's talk about the GL account coding section here, right? So let's say as a user, if I want to come in and apply the GL account code, all I need to do is come here and click on this add button. Now, as soon as I click on the add button, notice how it populates a GL account code for me automatically. So the idea here is that based on how your vendor is set up in Sage, if your vendor is assigned with a default GL account code, we will bring back that information and automatically apply to the invoice. So that way you're not spending time doing the GL account coding of the default account every single time. So it saves you that, clicks and saves that time for you. Another key functionality that all of our vendors love or all of our customers love is the capability of being able to create templates. So let's talk about that. Now, with the templates, what you can do is, let's think of a use case of, you've got a rent invoice or you've got a utility bill, a telephone bill or internet bill. And with those, you need to, split that bill in 3 or 4 different departments and 3 and 4 different GL account codes. All you need to do is first time when you come across that bill is create that list of GL account codes. So what I'm doing here is selecting, 3 different GL account codes that I have. So here's my second account code and here is my third one. So after I created that list of GL account codes, I can go under options on the top and I can save that list as a template. So as soon as I select that save as template, this is where I can come in and say, okay, this is going to be my internet bill. Okay, hit that save button. Now, what I've done is I've created that layout of GL account codes as part of a template. So let's fast forward. Let's say, this invoice has been paid, taken care of, next month comes around. You come in and click on that create new stamp, and then you realize that, you know what, when I was working on this invoice last time, I created a template, so I'll go ahead and select it. As soon as I select my template, notice how it automatically populates that list of GL account codes for you. So that's the beauty of having that template feature, where user does not have to remember list of all the GL account codes, or does not have to go in and create that list over and over again. We have had customers who are splitting amongst like 20, 25 different locations or 50 plus location and whatnot. And all they did was just click on a single button to populate that list of 25 and 50 GL account codes. That's how simple it can be. Okay, so that's one. Number two is, let's say an admin or manager is doing the GL account coding, right? And when they come in here to do the GL account code, they click on this button, and system brings back that list of all the GL account codes, which is 201. In some cases, I've seen up to like thousands of GL account codes. And it's kind of crazy to actually go through that list and figure out which GL account code matches up to, you know, or which GL account codes I'm looking for. So in order to enhance that user experience, what we can do is, based on the person that's logged in, so let's say if I'm logged in as an IT manager, I do not really have to look at that list of 200 plus GL account codes. The system will automatically filter the list of GL account codes based on my login to show maybe 10 or 15 GL account codes that apply to me. So that way, it becomes a quick and easy, you know, selection. I do not have to go through, scroll up and down and find the right GL account code. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a baseline functionality of DocLink, being able to, you know, provide that information based on the user, kind of customizing the experience of the user, and also reducing the chances of making errors and mistakes. When you're going through a list of hundreds of GL account codes, there is a chance that you can pick a wrong one, and, you know, that could cause issues down the road. So that's something to keep in mind as, you know, baseline functionality offered by DocLink. Now, to keep this invoice simple, what I'm going to do is just, you know, go ahead and take that GL account code that I have as the default, and then apply the amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say $9,175. At the bottom, it shows me that there is a difference of that amount. I will go ahead and apply that amount, 9175. And then with that, it tells me that everything has been distributed. There is, you know, no balance left on that invoice. I do have options of putting in comments, which is my line detail comment, and also the header comment on the top here. And these comments will actually be eventually pushed into the comment field section on Sage invoice entry screen. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Once I'm done with the distribution, what I can do is I can click on the stamp button. And then after I click on the stamp button, what you'll notice is that there are two things that will happen. Number one is that we will disable these fields so that the user is not making any changes by mistake. Does not mean that user cannot make any changes at all. In order to make any modification, you can come in and click on the copy to new stamp option, and it'll basically enable these fields and then allow you to make changes. Number two is system will add a second page to the invoice. So here's my first page, which is the copy of the invoice. And here's my second page, which is more or less like the audit history of the invoice, if you will. So with that audit history, I can see which user, what date and time applied that information, what was my header information, and what was the GL account coding details. So that way, when I'm looking at this invoice, you know, 10 months or 10 years down the road, I can easily tell who applied what information and what date and time. So that's the idea, keeping that complete visibility and traceability of, you know, of the document. Now, once I'm done as the accounts payable person, what I can do is I can add any kind of notes if necessary. So I can come here and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to say, please approve this invoice ASAP. And I want to relay that information to the user. Again, capturing that complete audit history, the user, date, and time. And then I'm ready to go ahead and send this document out for approval. Now, as far as the sending out of document for approval goes, there are a couple of ways you can do that. Number one is what we call as rule-based routing. With that rule-based routing, the idea is that you can essentially configure rules and conditions. And those rules and conditions can be configured based on vendor, based on GL account code or a segment of GL account code, or there could be an additional drop-down in the header section here that allows you to select a department, and you can then go ahead and send the documents out based on that department. Now, once you go ahead and send the document out based on those rules and conditions, system will automatically remember and know that, yes, this document needs to go out to, IT manager based on the department selected or based on the segment of GL account code. Second thing that we can do on top is the capability of being able to have additional level of approval. So say based on dollar amount, if we know that any invoice that's over $5,000 needs to go to CFO or controller for approval, we can configure those rules. So system will automatically send that document that's over that dollar amount limit to the right person. So those are the use cases that can allow that robotic process automation. So that way it takes away that human interaction and makes more automated process, right? Number two is giving that flexibility to the users. So DocLink as a configuration-based system, it's really easy for a user to be able to select and configure which user they want to go ahead and send this document to. So what I can do in that case is on ad hoc basis, I can come here, select the right person that I need to send this document to. So in our case, let's say it's IT manager. So all I did was selected that person from the list, and that list is based on the configuration. So if you created a list of 15, 20, hundreds of users, it'll basically show them or show 80% that list right here. So you can come here, select the right person that they would want to send that document to. Maybe it's an exception, does not really fit into those rules and conditions that we have configured. And once I select that user, all I need to do is come here, click on that send button, and off that document goes to IT manager. So that's how simple it can be. Now, here's my next invoice that's sitting in my queue. And notice how on this invoice, we already have the header information, most of it already populated. And the reason why that is because this invoice was sent through OCR process, and user does not have to enter in all those different pieces of information. Maybe some of the details that user populates, maybe the posting date, the GL account code part of it, and then the user can go ahead and send this document out for approval. So that could be a quick and easy way of, further automating using OCR. All right. So with that, let's move on. Let's go ahead and talk about the next step in the process. Before I do that, something I'd like to kind of point out is when you are handling those purchase order-based invoices, and in case of that PO invoice, if there are, let's say, packing slips, there are copies of purchase order or contract. What we do is, as part of our workflow process, when a user looks at that PO invoice, in the supporting document section right here, as you can see, we show the copies of any other document that goes with that PO invoice. So if there is a copy of purchase order, if there is a packing slip, if there are any other invoices that has been assigned to that purchase order, we will show them right here. So that the user can quickly eyeball them, confirm everything looks good, and be able to make that decision rather easily, versus going into, Sage and then trying to see the information, validating and confirming. So, jumping back and forth between two systems, it's all done right here in DocLink. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. With that, let's move on to the next step in the process, right? So what we have seen so far is onboarding the document, sending that document into the workflow process for accounts payable team member to put in some kind of GL account codes, and then routing the document for further approval and processing, right? So once that routing process starts and the approver, receives the new document, what we can do is we can notify the approver, telling them about, hey, you've got a new document for you to work on. So what we do is we send out an email notification to the user, and there are a couple of different ways we can notify. Option number one is we can send an email notification, something similar to this, where we can say, hey, we've got a new document for you, IT manager. The layout of the email can be configured based on, based on how you want that email to look like. And along with that email, we can attach the copy of the invoice. So I can come here, look at that attachment. If I scroll further down, I can see all the details of the invoice along with the GL account coding. So I can see who applied, what GL account codes. So I get to see that complete picture, right? And once I see all the details and confirm everything looks good, I can go right back to my message and I can approve that document right here from my email. Now, something you will notice is that with my approval options, I've got a couple of ways when I'm approving from my email. One is just a standard approval that will capture which user, what date and time approved that document. Option number 2 is where we allow users to be able to approve with the notes option, where user can not only approve the document, but also be able to type in some kind of a note along with their approval. Maybe they want to say that, hey, do not pay this invoice until 2 weeks, or, do not pay this invoice until next month. Anything that they want to relate to the, next person in the process, they can just use that approve with note option. So that's one way of getting access to the documents. Another way could be that we can notify users telling them that, hey, you've got a new document for you to work on. And in order to approve that, we can provide them with a link. So with that link, a user just comes in, clicks on that link, standard Outlook message, do you want to launch the application? Saying yes to that, and it will bring up the DocLink login screen. Now with that DocLink login screen, I can come in here, select my IT manager login, and once I'm logged in, it'll take me directly to that document. So that way it saves me all the clicks, or a couple of clicks that will basically drive me to that document. Instead of that, it'll take me directly to the invoice, open it up for me. So all I need to do here is that confirm everything looks good, confirm the GL account coding section, and once I have, I've made my decision, I can come here, click on that approve button, capturing all the audit history. I can relay some kind of notes if I need to, so I can type in an info note saying, please pay this next week. So using DocLink as a great communication tool, right? And then once I'm done, all I need to do is go ahead and send that document to the approved bucket. So that's how simple it can be from a manager standpoint, even with logging in into DocLink option. Obviously, email is a big hit. I've seen majority of our customers using email approval for their managers. For someone like an executive person who does not want to log in into an application, they can just go right to their email and then be able to approve documents from their email, right? There are a lot of different ways the user can interact with the application. Email being one of them, directly, applying on the client application is another one. Some other examples are being able to log in into a web console. So as long as you have access to internet, as a user, you can come in here. So if I want to log in as an IT manager, I can come in, log in as IT manager. And then once I log in, same idea, it'll show me multiple tabs on the top. I will go ahead and select the one that I would like to work on. So let's say workflow is the one. I can select my workflow, select the workflow that I'm working on. So let's say I'm working on the AP invoices, hit that search button, and then shows me the list of the documents that are sitting for me. That could be another way of, approving those invoices, quick and easy way of getting access to them, clicking on that approve button and sending that document to the approved bucket. So, a lot of different ways user can kind of interact with the application. And as Kurt mentioned, we do offer DocLink mobile application as well on your iOS and Android devices. So you can download our application, be able to do the approval of the invoices from the mobile app as well. Eventually, let's say the document has been approved and, it has been sent to the accounts payable team. If the accounts payable team at that point can go ahead and log in, look at the document that has been approved. So what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to log in as an admin user, and just to kind of, show you all the bells and whistles. Once I log in as the admin user, I can go into the approved queue and look at that approved invoice. So that way it shows me the list of all the documents that has been approved. Now, when I'm looking at that list, if I decide to go ahead and send that document into the next step in the process, that is, importing that invoice into Sage, all I need to do is take that invoice and then send it to the next step called ready for import. So I can just come here, send that document to ready for import bucket. And when I send that document to ready for import bucket, on a schedule that's running in the background, we will take the invoices and put them into, into Sage within a batch. So that way you have your batch ready and sitting in Sage for you to further process, post and make payments against those batches. You can still make changes to the invoices while they're sitting in Sage. So let's say, something comes up and you realize that you need to change the GL account code, or you need to short pay that invoice for some reason. You can make those modifications in Sage, and once you make those modifications in Sage, it'll automatically update the document in DocLink as well. So that's the idea. Now, eventually, once the document has been imported into Sage, what will happen is that the capability of being able to do that two-way direction, two-way integration with Sage and DocLink. So while I'm in Sage, and if I want to look at the copy of that invoice, so let's say here I am in Sage in my invoice data entry screen, and if I want to view the actual copy of the invoice that goes with that transaction, all I need to do is, using our seamless integration, click on that view documents button. And as soon as I do that, system will go ahead and bring up the copy of that invoice from DocLink along with all the details and the history that goes with that invoice. So I can see who approved it, what date and time it was approved. I can see details of who applied the GL account code, or what was the information that was applied. So I can see all of those pieces of information, on fingertips. All I need to do is just come here in Sage and click on that View Documents button. So that's the really neat and cool feature, in the sense that it gives that ease of access of documents. You don't have to, run to a filing cabinet, or I was at a customer's location last week, and they had boxes of information. They had about like 25 boxes that they produced for all the reports and for all the invoices that they process. And that was just 1 month worth of invoices. So you don't imagine, retrieving a document from those 25 boxes. So you don't have to go through that process of finding those documents. All you need to do is just come here and click on that View Documents button, and it's on your fingertip, right? And it gives you that complete audit history. So think about, when you're getting audited and an auditor comes in and like, hey, can you show me these 15 invoices from, from a specific vendor from last year? When those kind of cases comes up, our customer spends literally minutes to get access to those documents and find all those invoices. So all it takes is going into DocLink, selecting that advanced or full text inquiry. Using advanced inquiry, I can come here, select the document type on the left, and on the right-hand side, I can say the information that I want the document to show up based off of. Let's say I'm looking for invoices where my vendor name starts with Del Forms, DEL. I can filter my search result based on the invoice date range, on the invoice number. So using multiple parameters here, I can basically use those parameters to search across the repository. And then after I hit that search button, let me see, I don't think I have Del Form. So let's try Airway. So I'll type in first three characters, AIR, hit that search button, and it shows me the list of those documents right here. All I need to do is, when my auditor comes in and asks for those documents, select the ones that I need to export, and then use my download manager capability to be able to export those documents. Now, after I export them to a specific folder, or onto a thumb drive, or external drive, and give that external drive to the user, along with the option of including the search engine software, so that way they can search across those documents using the same interface that we were looking at. So it makes your life a lot easier. Within minutes, you've got all the documents that auditor asked for. And at the same time, you don't have to worry about refiling those documents. You don't have to worry about, okay, Mr. Auditor, here's the one that you're looking for. The auditor can kind of self-service and then be able to access those documents and search across those documents themselves. So that's the beauty of utilizing DocLink, cut down on that audit time and giving easy access to the documents. Think of it from your internal user and employee standpoint. When they're trying to find out if the invoice has been paid or not, they don't have to reach out to the accounts payable team. Notice how we are updating the invoice with the payment information as well. So check number, check date, check amount. So that way, when they're trying to figure out if the invoice has been paid or not, all they need to do is just go in and search the document and find it themselves. So that's how simple it can be. With that, I will go ahead and wrap up my part of the presentation. There are a lot of different things we can still talk about, and there are a lot of things that DocLink can achieve, but I'll keep them for later, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any further question or ask on the webinar. So passing it back to you, Kurt.
Perfect. Thank you, Himanshu. So as Himanshu stated a few times, there are a few things outside of AP that DocLink can do. And when I say a few, I actually mean a lot. So I think probably 9 times out of 10, folks that come to us regarding document management is usually around the area of AP. That's where they initially want to start. But once they get a quick understanding of DocLink, and maybe they implement it, start using it, over time, they start realizing that, hey, we can have this impact other areas of our business that are paper intensive. So when we talk about going beyond AP, there are a lot of things we can do. So when you're investing in DocLink, you're actually investing in a scalable product as well, in terms of moving around the organization and creating that impact, right? So here are just a couple light bulb moments, or thoughts rather, in terms of where we can scale and how we do scale. So a lot of our customers are starting to utilize DocLink for contract management. We have some customers that have came to us just for field service aspect, right? So with the ability to utilize our mobile app to and our web client, and then with that ability to create forms via the web, we have field service companies that are using our product to upload forms, to update forms on the spot via the web forms, and then route those for approval to process those documents faster, to get payment out faster. So that's the nice thing there, right? We're seeing human resources, a big one we're seeing a lot of folks asking about too, because there's a lot of documentation that comes into play when we talk about HR, right? Onboarding documents, W-9s, maybe there's they have to have a drug test. All that stuff can be actually housed in DocLink. Sales order process is a big one as well. We see a lot of sales order processes coming through now. I think this is a big tipping point for us and a lot of our customers, or folks that are just seeking to utilize DocLink. And then we're also certificate compliance, and then tracking and things like that. And then I did touch on this at the very beginning, but expense reports. Maybe your organization doesn't need something as robust as some of those expense report only type programs out there. Maybe you can utilize DocLink and get the benefits of streamlining AP, your sales order process, and have us also be able to help you out with expense reports because we have that mobile and web functionality, right? So these are just, again, some other opportunities where DocLink can easily expand beyond AP, or you can actually start in and bypass AP altogether. Maybe AP isn't the pain point. Maybe it's that sales order process. Maybe it's HR. But the idea here is we can scale very, very well. And so why DocLink? We are an Sage endorsed product. We are good, have rapid implementations and outstanding customer service. So really what I want to do now is, we have a few minutes here, and I want to open it up to any questions that may have came through, Chris.
Okay, so we did have a question. Can prior invoices already paid get added to the software and linked back to the ERP system?
Technically, yes. However, we generally will say, hey, let's start from scratch moving forward. You know, we'll start bringing those invoices in. But if you do want to bring some of those older invoices that have been paid, etc., into DocLink, you can. But generally, we say let's start fresh.
Okay. Another one that came in is kind of going back to how do you get the invoices and back up into the system? I mean, is it all through scanning, or what are the options there?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, and Himanshu also covered this as well, but we have various ways of bringing documents in. So it can be scanned. It can be, you know, captured via an email and brought in. If you have barcodes, we can use those as well. We do have a print capture. You know, anything that's created within the ERP can be pulled into DocLink. So you don't have to, you know, recreate any document there internally. So again, various ways of bringing that information and housing it in DocLink beyond scan.
Okay. We have a question on regarding the payment. It's controlled through Sage, so the payment of the invoices, etc.
Correct. Yep, it's going to be handled through Sage.
Okay. So the DocLink software, is it installed on its own server? Can be installed on servers that's already running, say, Sage or other things? What does that look like?
Yes. So it will be installed on-premise, or it can be hosted. However, generally, we just need to make sure you have enough room on the server, but oftentimes it can be on the same server as, say, what Sage is on. We just want to make sure you have enough RAM. So we can provide some specs to ensure that you get the best usability and don't cause any delays or slowdowns or anything like that.
Excellent. So that is okay. That appears to be all the questions at the moment.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we're getting close to the top of the hour anyhow. So we'll give everybody a minute or two back in their day. But if there are any other questions that come up, or if you want to talk a little more about DocLink in general and some other use cases maybe that you want to utilize DocLink for, you can reach out to Cons, you can reach out to Chris, and they can loop us in and we can have that conversation. This has been recorded, and I believe Chris will be distributing it to everyone as well to revisit as you wish. So that being said, I would like to thank everybody for your time this afternoon. Look forward to hopefully speaking with you folks soon. So thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.